Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Africa 360. I'm your host, Kwangu Liwewe. Botswana is Africa's pride and joy, one of the few countries on the continent with a consistent record in good governance, political and economic stability. This week on Africa 360, we travel to Gaborone and peel beneath the layers to examine the damning allegations leveled against the government there. The Botswana Democratic Party has been in power since independence in 1966, presiding over nearly 5 decades of political stability and economic growth. But the weeks leading up to the country's 11th democratic polls revealed a widespread call for change. Senior producer Lindy Mutongana hit the streets of Gaborone to find out why Botswana are so fed up.
Botswana is one of Africa's most remarkable success stories. A peaceful nation, free of corruption. A stable economy built on diamonds. Free education, free healthcare. The proud achievements of the Botswana Democratic Party, which has ruled since independence in 1966. The country's founding father, Sir Seretse Khama, transformed Botswana from a cattle post in the desert to one of the world's most important diamond economies. Over the years, Botswana cemented its glowing reputation, achieving high rankings in regional and international indices. Ranked 30th out of 175 countries, Botswana is the least corrupt nation in Africa. The World Press Freedom Index placed Botswana ahead of the US for media freedom, while the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance says Botswana is the continent's third best performer. Seretse Khama and the leaders that followed after him are credited for presiding over 4 decades of economic and political stability. But today, under the leadership of the founding father's eldest son, Ian Khama, it appears rankings and reports no longer match the reality on the ground. Economic growth has slowed. Youth unemployment is on the rise. And in 2011, Botswana saw its biggest ever public wage strike. Perfect ingredients for the growth of the political opposition. The 2014 elections were touted as the most contested in Botswana's history, as the Umbrella for Democratic Change and the Botswana Congress Party fought to take constituencies from the ruling BDP. The elections revealed a deep desire for change among urban youth voters.
If you look at all the other African countries, they have changed their political leaders peacefully. So let's just change and see what happens. We give them 5 years, and then if we must, we take them out.
We take them off.
We are better compared to other African countries, but I think we could be better. So these elections are really about taking us to where we think we should be.
There are allegations that suggest that democracy and justice are under threat in Botswana. There is suspicion around the death of Khumulemo Motsoaledi, the Secretary General of the opposition Umbrella for Democratic Change. He died in a car accident in July this year. But many believe the accident may have been the work of Botswana's notorious Directorate of Intelligence and Security Services.
I must say that of late, the state of justice or the rule of law has been diminishing in this country. Issues of extrajudicial killings, the attitude that government has adopted in respect of the media, and generally issues relating to governance. There is a feeling, a general perception amongst people that the standards of democracy generally in this country are diminishing.
The state's relationship with the media is also of growing concern. Earlier this year, the editor of the Sunday Standard was arrested while a reporter fled to South Africa after facing charges of sedition for writing a story about the president.
Laws such as sedition, laws that prohibit publication of certain matter, laws such as criminal defamation in respect of the president. All these laws and a host of others have got a chilling effect on freedom of expression.
Following his inauguration for a second term as president, Ian Khama went to court to seek an amendment to how the vice president, speaker of parliament and deputy speaker are elected. He wants MPs to vote by a show of hands rather than a secret ballot. Another measure that suggests that democracy may be under threat in Botswana. Journalists and lawyers are among those coming under fire for their investigations of the alleged miscarriage of justice here in Botswana.
Allegations they had.
But they are no less determined in their fight for justice.
I will continue doing the work I'm doing, because I believe in it, and I believe that it is something I've been destined to do in this world.
Lindy Mtongana, Gaborone.
I'm joined now by Mr. Duma Boko, who's the leader of Botswana's opposition coalition, the Umbrella for Democratic Change. Thank you very much for joining us on Africa 360. Now, for us on the outside, Botswana is seen as a democracy, a functioning democracy, and also one of the success stories of African nations. And obviously, I mean, the BDP has been ruling this party for almost 50 years plus. Can't they be credited for this?
Well, yes, they deserve some credit, especially the previous 3 presidents of Botswana. They deserve some commendation for the work that they've done. But with the current regime, I think those accolades would be highly misplaced, which is why we've seen the regression in terms of economic development. We've seen declining standards in education and health. We see alarming levels of corruption. We've seen heightened insecurity on the part of every citizen of the Republic of Botswana. So any accolades that attach or accrue would accrue to presidents long gone and would have to end with President Mugai. With the current regime, those accolades would be misplaced.
Now, talking about the presidents long gone, what is their relationship like with the incumbent?
It does not seem to be very good. They have come out, in fact, they have had to come out and declare that Botswana is fast receding into a monocracy. They have come out. President Masire and President Mugai have said this openly and publicly. And President Masire has come out and indicated that the opposition now is more credible than it ever was and deserves to be considered for government.
Let's talk about the incumbent president, Ian Khama. Of course, he's the son of the first president. He's also a chief of a major tribe. But we're starting to hear rumors of discontent about his increasingly draconian style of leadership. Just tell us a bit more about this.
Well, yes, indeed. He came in highly touted. He came in commanding a lot of goodwill. He was coming in from the army. He inherited a political party, the Botswana Democratic Party, that was riddled with factions at the time. He was seen as the person to unite the party, to reunite the party and do away with the factions.
And he did?
And he failed miserably.
Okay.
In fact, for the first time in the history of the ruling party, it suffered a major split that resulted in the formation of the Botswana Movement for Democracy, which is a splinter organization of the ruling party and is also part of the Umbrella for Democratic Change. Now, that was an event that shook the Botswana Democratic Party to its very foundations. One would have expected a leader to respond to these challenges by reviewing his style of leadership, his approach. He, in fact, failed to do so and intensified his draconian approach to leadership. He has made the party all about himself, and the entire administrative apparatus of the country is now a one-man show. So if one were to describe Botswana in one word at the moment, one would have to call it a monocracy. It's a government of Ian Khama, by him, at best with his cronies, and for himself.
Now, talking about the party, just tell us, does it actually have a grip on instruments such as the military or the judicial system in the country?
The party as such doesn't.
And the man himself, Ian Khama?
The man himself has a grip on 1 or 2 institutions that, by law, he has control over. He has lost the confidence of the army. The army is totally disillusioned. They have their own work-related grievances that they've raised over a long period of time. That began, in fact, when he was still in the army. Some of them have persisted to this day, and the army blames him. in critical respects for those problems. He has formed, when he came into office, he approaches politics and administration from the stance of what we might call a security neurosis. He is very paranoid. He established the Directorate on Intelligence Services, whose mandate is very unclear, whose expertise is highly questionable. People dabble in the investigation of petty crimes, interfering with the work of the police, unaccountable to any judicial process. They interfere in the work of the military, because a lot of these operatives are drawn from the military. They interfere in pretty much every facet of life in Botswana.
Do you fear for your own life?
Yes, I do. And this we've stated so many times. Not only do I fear for my own life, I fear for the lives of the other citizens of the Republic. We've seen experiences very recently, incidences where members of the DIS have picked up people from their houses and gone and tortured them, seeking to extract information that we are unclear about. So these are things that scare everybody. Botswana is gripped by this fear. Everybody feels insecure. Everybody feels that their privacies are being violated. Their conversations over their phones and mobile phones are being listened into. So it's a reign of error and terror in Botswana at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boko.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We have never, ever intercepted justice to take its course.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa 360. Damning allegations were made by the Umbrella for Democratic Change in the run-up to Botswana's 2014 elections. The UDC and the private media painted a picture of a ruling party whose grip on power is tightening as its confidence begins to fade. We went to the BDP headquarters in Gaborone and sat down with the party's Secretary General, Mpho Balopi. Here's that interview. Now let's look at the political tensions that we saw just in the run-up to the elections. An opposition politician he died in a car accident, a suspicious car accident. Motsoaledi, another opposition member, was left for dead in a ditch, and he alleged that he was actually tortured and kidnapped by the Secret Service in this country. How do you respond to this? Because a lot of people are pointing fingers at the ruling party.
You know what? It's unfortunate. We always say to people, the Botswana Democratic Party can do everything to delay death in terms of the good health facilities that we have. Ever since independence, we have been developing our health services. And the only thing that we can do, we cannot stop death. Neither can we stop car accidents. But what is very, very critical to understand here is that we felt as the Botswana Democratic Party, because Motsoaledi, the man that you are mentioning right now, he's a personal friend, that's for starters, as the Secretary General. He's a former Secretary General of Botswana Democratic Party, even though his term was only for about maybe less than 2 months. But one thing that you have to understand is that he was groomed, and he established himself as a politician within the Botswana Democratic Party. You understand? So there was no foul play. We strongly believe that this was very, I don't want to say irresponsible for the opposition, because, you've always enjoyed the peace, the tranquility, the unity within this country. You've always been a shining example for, many countries. You've been used as an example. When
just taking up on that point about Botswana being hailed as, one of the very good countries when it comes to good governance and democracy. Yet we've seen a clampdown on the media in this country, and I'm referring to the editor who was arrested and charged with sedition, and another journalist fleeing to South Africa looking for asylum. So
this is very unfortunate. It's unfortunate because there has been this false reporting, peddling of untruths and all those things about a lot of things here. But as that was happening, indexes such as the Mo Ibrahim, the Afrobarometer, and many others, they were indicating continuously that Botswana was a very, peaceful country, freedom of expression was there. And
but critics here, we've been talking to people on the ground. They're saying all these organizations that you've named, such as the Mo Ibrahim Index and others, it's reputation versus the reality on the ground. And they're saying that's not what's happening in this country.
Yeah, you know what? People have opinions. And I must say that I'm a responsible citizen. Most of us here, we are all products. Let me tell you one thing. For example, all these journalists something that maybe you have not asked them and you don't understand. All of them went to school for free. They were taken, for free from primary school to university. And one thing that is, you have to understand, if the BDP government believed that by educating people, including training them as journalists, taking them to reputable universities to study journalism and all those things, was to actually give, people that you don't necessarily want to come in and comment and do what they've been trained for. You will not then sponsor them, because by doing that, you are actually creating a problem for yourselves. We do that not only because we do know one of the key pillars of this country is freedom of expression and, democracy in totality. So we strongly believe that there's no decline. The only thing is that opposition wanted to sell papers. And, Botswana has given the population of this country, a lot of papers. A lot of papers. And everybody has to try and do something that can catch one's eye so that they can sell their paper. You understand? So all this, I'll give you an example. One of the papers here, one of the local newspapers here reported that there's a tunnel that is being dug, from the State House where the president lives. You are preparing to, run away once you lose elections and all that. And I asked a very simple question. I take it that when you dig somewhere, there has to be heaps of soil somewhere which come out of the tunnel. Maybe that should be the starting point. Forget about talking about security as to whether that is indeed happening. You need to be able to substantiate what you report on. But here people just say things because they know. So you're
saying that most of the journalists are unethical?
Very, very much so. And this is not, by the way, the journalists in Botswana, do you know that they are not controlled? They're not regulated. They've got no ethics whatsoever.
There seems to be a perception that the president has a distaste for the media, especially in this country. And you've just said to us now that the media here is unethical. So how do you balance this picture that's painted of great Botswana, good governance, good democracy, yet you've got an unethical media here that is detested by the president?
No, it's not true. The president has been, he's given...
He doesn't even have press conferences, I believe.
No, let me tell you something. I don't know whether a press conference, you regard a press conference as the highest
It's not the highest, but he must speak to the press and they must question him on certain
he has
things.
Been questioned. He has been covered by a number of journalists, including the paper that reported that he had this thing, one-on-one. They have been to
But he doesn't
office.
have press conferences, is that correct? And why doesn't he do this?
He had press conferences, I know very well, for instance, in 2011, in Mahalape, after giving an address in our national
So that
conference.
was 3 years ago.
No, wait a minute. He always interacts with the press, always. You understand? It might be how we actually interact with the press, that might not necessarily be what they want. And the difference is, I don't think you have to get a freedom of expression and freedom of affiliation, freedom of doing everything. Even the president has it, isn't it? It's not only that me as the Secretary General or you or any other people should have the right to say this is how I'm going to be communicating, but the most important thing is the president is forever communicating with the press, and if you want to go and interview him on various issues, he's always available to do that. Yeah, he's done that a lot of times.
Now, if we look at one of the former presidents, Festus Mogae, he's on record as saying, I think it was during the 2014 African Leadership Forum in Tanzania, he said that the current regime doesn't respect the rule of law. Isn't that an indictment coming from one of your former presidents?
You know what, we did respond to that statement to say, freedom of expression actually doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say everything that we'd like to hear, but you have to prove. You have to understand that each and every time, and times do have their own challenges at the particular time. But the president of this country has been, not even once, not twice, he has been applauded to be number one in terms of taking care of his people.
But people say he's too powerful, and that the courts, even your own party and the legislature, they don't have any authority to hold him to account. That's because of provisions in the Constitution. Therefore, he wields a lot of power.
The powers of the president are the same as the first president powers here. I don't know which powers now we are talking about. He's using the same Constitution that other presidents were using.
Maybe they didn't abuse it.
No. And he's not abusing it. We have never, ever intercepted justice to take its course. And this current president has never done that.
Mr. Balopi, thank you very much. We'll have to end the interview there. We've run out of time. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's not like
we hate President Khama personally. We just happen to be against some of the decisions he's taking.
Welcome back. The Secretary General of Botswana's ruling BDP, Mpho Balopi, certainly had some harsh words for journalists in Botswana. We decided to get their side of the story. Outsa Mokone, the editor of the Sunday Standard, who was arrested and charged with sedition, spoke to us. Here's what he had to say in response to the BDP allegations. Thanks very much for joining us. Now, we spoke to the Secretary General of the ruling party, and he's saying that journalists in this country are basically unethical, including your news organization. How do you respond to this?
Well, he represents the other side, so I would expect him to say that. In fact, I doubt he'd have said anything nice about journalists in this country. We've had relationships with previous governments, and it was a very healthy relationship until we had the current administration, which I think is understandable considering that the leader of the current administration is a soldier and he's used to issuing orders. He's not used to being questioned. He's not used to being held to account. And army generals naturally take offense when they're being called to account. So that pretty much explains why there's such an adversarial relationship between us in the media and the current administration.
Mr. Balopi cites an example of one of the stories you carried, that a bunker has been built at the presidential residence, and he says this is, as he said, it's hogwash. It's not true. It's a fabrication. Do you have any proof that this bunker has actually been built?
Well, we published a picture of the bunker under construction. And we challenge them, if they deny the story, we challenge them to go with us to that bunker. We know where it is. We shot a picture of that bunker. So we challenge them to go with us to that bunker and shoot pictures and show it to the world, because we insist that it is a bunker that's been built there.
Now, Mr. Balopi says that Edgar Tsimane's story is a complete fabrication, and then you as well saying that your life is in danger is absolutely not true. Just shed more light on this.
Well, Edgar Tsimane's brother works in the intelligence agency, in the country's intelligence agency. And Edgar Tsimane's brother warned Edgar that his life is in danger. And we've had instances in this country where journalists and opposition party politicians were either abducted, kidnapped, tortured, and probably killed. We have the Homolimo Motswaledi incident. A lot of people believe he was killed, and we believe he was killed too. So when you are told your life is in danger against a background of such developments, would you say, no, it's not true, I don't believe that? No, it doesn't work that way.
What does media freedom look like in this country under another BDP government?
Well, I expect that they would clamp down on the media. In fact, I would not be surprised if they clamp down on the media. We've had a very, especially the Sunday Standard. The Sunday Standard has had a very difficult relationship with the government of Botswana. We don't get government advertising. We are the biggest circulating quality newspaper in the country, and yet we don't get government advertising. The ruling party, on the other hand, when they went to the elections, they knew they needed to reach our readership. They advertise with us, and yet the government does not advertise with us because they don't want us to get government advertising. That says a lot. It's not about it. The decision not to advertise with us is not a business decision. It's because they are trying to penalize us for our editorial position. It's not because they think we don't reach the market they want to service. So we have that problem with the government.
Now, the allegations that your newspaper is supporting the opposition, especially the coalition party, how do you respond to this?
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. We are seen to be sympathetic with the opposition for now. But I can assure you that if President Khama were to lose the elections tomorrow, we would be the first newspaper, and he knows it deep down. We would be the first newspaper to defend him in the event that any of these parties try to harass him or treat him unjustly. He knows the Sunday Standard would be the first newspaper to come to his defense. So it's not like we hate President Khama personally. We just happen to be against some of the decisions he's taking. Because we are for the rule of law, and he's seen to be eroding the rule of law in this country. So naturally, we would be seen to be at cross purposes.
Thank you very much for the interview. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Africa 360. If you would like to add your voice to the discussion on the issues raised, visit our Facebook page, or you can tweet us at Africa360_ENCA. You can also send your emails to Africa360@enca.com. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.